19. Hey there everyone. So the luggage is ready. Not enough cigarettes ready, but sort of ready as well. I'm taping this about 6 hours before departure to Sweden. So if you're watching this, we definitely safely landed to Sweden, because otherwise no one's gonna have the time to render it. So there's that. And hopefully there is internet as well in Sweden, so in order to be able to upload it. So the time is now. First of all, some administrative stuff. I have already determined the winners for the side competition with regards to those who have donated the most for this Swedish tour. Thank you to everyone who have supported this effort. I'm hoping that we will be able to deliver in accordance, as much as possible in accordance with your expectations. I know that the expectations are high. And yeah, so as soon as I'll be back to Romania, which is going to be roughly around July the 10th or so, I'll start sending you all the prizes that you have won. So there's that. Also, I have introduced on the website, and I'm sure some of you have already seen it. If you haven't, please check the links in the low bar. This lovely t-shirt with the Wuhan flu. There's going to be other versions as well, also as soon as I get back to Romania. And it's going to be with the green virus that sneezes, and of course the one version in Romanian with Hapchu 19. So there's that. So yeah, I don't know what we expect to see in Sweden. That's one of the reasons I insisted on taping this video before takeoff, because I don't know what are we expecting, because the information that we're getting is increasingly contradictory. And of course there are some aspects that are simply not available on the internet. We cannot know unless we go there. For instance, and considering that about 65% or maybe 63.4, something like that, roughly 2/3 of the donations came from inside Romania, obviously I have to answer some of the questions that the Romanian donors have asked about Sweden. So, and I'm gonna have to try to find a balance in such a way that it gets enough coverage in English and also enough coverage in Romanian. You've given me a lot of work in post-production once we get back to Romania. Anyway, there are some more finesse questions that we don't have an answer yet, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to get them once we land in Sweden. For instance, not just in Romania, also in Italy and in many other southern European countries and areas, we have been told by the cathedral media, the Lügenpresse, whatever you want to call it, we have been told that, you know, in Sweden they're so superior as a civilization, they don't need sanitary fascism because, you know, they naturally observe that pre-medieval nonsense called social distancing, which is as far away as it can possibly be from health policy. So, you know, they don't need sanitary fascism because they naturally observe once they've been recommended by some figure on TV. And we have footage to already from our friends in Sweden to prove that it's not exactly like that. But maybe that friend of ours has selected footage. Maybe there are areas where they do. And if yes, who does and who doesn't? Also, there are some other aspects. For instance, in many places in southern Europe, you have this called, what do you call it in English? A muzzle botnitsa, I think. Yeah, I think that's the term. So yeah, there's mandatory muzzles to be worn inside public spaces, enclosed public spaces. Basically, legislation piggybacking on the legislation that bans smoking in enclosed spaces. In Sweden, that appears to be very rare, but how rare it is, maybe it happens a lot more often than we know, because the press doesn't tell us. And of course, I don't blame the press for not telling us. because of course the press has more important business to do. Sweden has had a lot of very, how do we call them? I guess we call them extremist protests, where obviously no social distancing was observed. So the press has a lot of more important aspects to tell to the public, but maybe we can figure that one out. And there are a lot of these kinds of small questions to be asked, and also there are a lot of big questions. We've got information from some of our friends, and even from some people who don't actually like us, have gotten information that their hospitals have had some dubious policies in the middle of the epidemic of the Chinese cough, and even in Sweden, some chronically ill people have had to suffer because of the commie cough, in the sense that they haven't been given necessary medical services in time, and so on and so forth. So we'll be researching that one too. Ideally, at the end of this tour, there will be a longish documentary with as much information as possible, and while we are in Sweden, also some smaller reports from the field with various aspects related to the Chinese cough and how the Swedish society has changed, in which way it has changed, and how much it has changed due to the existence of the Chinese cough or the Wuhan flu. And also, of course, we'll be looking at the geopolitics. Sweden has had a very decent track record in the last 12 to 16 or to 18 months with shutting down so-called Chinese cultural centers, in reality spy bases, of course. That's what any communist state does. So they've had some very good track record on the geopolitical front. And has that accelerated since the outbreak of the Wuhan flu? Maybe yes, maybe not. We'll have to go and check it out ourselves. I'm already having in mind, once I get to Göteborg, I want to get to see what has happened at the Chinese Cultural Center there, because in 2017 I met a few protesters in front of that particular center, and I read in the paper that it's been shut down. Has it? I don't know. See it right there at the spot. It seems to be, in my opinion, the best way to check. So yeah, there are a lot of questions that even we have, even though we have been reading more than 6,000 stories, news articles and so on in the last 3 weeks about Sweden and from Sweden. And there are still a lot of questions that we have, and we're hoping to find the answers to them and then deliver them to you all, of course. So yeah, we're expecting to have a very difficult time leaving Romania. Here, the never liberal party, as I call them, the political party that currently has the seat of the government, has adopted absolutely insane policies that have absolutely no connection whatsoever with the Wuhan flu, and a lot of connections with the lust for power that these asshats have. So we're expecting to have a lot of difficulties leaving Romania. And of course we'll be talking about those once we land, and hopefully have some footage, and hopefully we'll be able to leave Romania without having to threaten with lawyers and constitutional court and so on and so forth, like we have in the last several months every time we wanted to do something, and just keep on reminding them that look, you can't really do whatever you want just because you're afraid of the cough. Okay, so yeah, that's basically it. We're trying to find out as much as possible. We also scheduled several conversations with people who absolutely disagree with our position with regards to the Wuhan flu. We want to see their perspective as well, see what they're thinking, what they think Sweden should have done better in this situation. We even scheduled a conversation with someone who absolutely believes that Romania did much better than Sweden. I absolutely disagree with that, but maybe they have better arguments. Maybe even they convince me of that. Doubt, but I'm willing to change my opinion based on facts. And I insist on that aspect, based on facts. I don't care how many people have coughed, quite frankly, but I do care if you can present various facts that would show that Sweden would have gotten things even better if they would have taken the trade-off of imposing sanitary fascism. Now, this is the freedom alternative, so obviously we're starting with the bias that freedom is a lot more important than someone coughing, and being afraid of a cough is not good enough to suppress basic liberties and basically to suspend the economy, because that's the thing. Many liberal, so-called classical liberal political parties in Europe, starting with Romania, but not just Romania, have basically said, the economy is optional once we're afraid of a cough. And that's, like spitting in the face of 145 years of liberalism. And our bias is that that's basically not acceptable. But maybe we're wrong. So that's one of the many things that we're looking to find out in Sweden. Maybe we're wrong. The basis of wisdom is to start with the premise that what if you're wrong? So yeah, that's basically it for now as thoughts before departure. And hopefully in a few days, if the internet connection where we'll be living in Sweden will allow, and if time will allow, hopefully in a few days there will be a new short broadcast. So yeah, thanks a lot for support and thanks a lot for donating for this particular tour. And yeah, I will see you all soon on the Freedom Alternative. Cheers.